Hi, Jenni here, and this year I started my own little Tove Jansson Reading challenge, which includes 2 Moomin books and 2 non-moving fiction books. And I read 2 books, 1 Moomin book and 1 non-Moomin fiction book. So here are those books. The first book I read was Moomit ja suuri tuhotulva, which in English is Moomins and the Great Flood. This was originally written in Swedish and it was translated into Finnish by Jaakko Anhava. This is a special 80-year edition of the book. It was released in 1945. So Tove Jansson wrote this during the war. So this is the first Moomin book that was ever released. I have not read this one before, and it kind of shows the origin of how Moomins even ended up in the Moomin Valley. So in this story, the Moomin troll and his mom are searching for Moomin Papa and the home that he has built for them, but they were taken away by a great flood. And during their journey to find Moomin Papa, they meet all kinds of different characters who try to help them on their journey. There is constant rain and there is constant worry if they will find him and their new home again. And it is a very thrilling story of searching for Moomin Papa. So as I mentioned, this was released in 1945, and in my opinion it was quite clear that this story discusses the refugee experience, trying to search for a relative that has been lost, a family member that has been lost, all kinds of nature, environmental disasters, and the importance of sticking together and helping others. I really love these Moomin books because of their very descriptive and beautiful language. Tove is very talented with that. And even though these stories are meant for children, they do carry such important messages for adults as well. Obviously, Tove Jansson is an artist as well, so the book is full of her beautiful illustrations here as well. And this kind of taught me a lot about Moomins and their origin as well. I had no idea where Moomins actually came from and how did they build the Moomin Valley. Moomin started out as a silly little doodle by Tove Jansson. And then one day she actually looked at those doodles and thought, you know what, there might be something here. What I really loved about this special edition is that it involved Tove's notes regarding each Moomin character and how she viewed them and tried to portray them. First of all, here's a beautiful picture of Tove with all the Moomin characters. And these have been translated from Swedish into Finnish. And yes, there are introductions to each character. It really shows the wittiness of Tove Jansson. For example, it says here about the Moomin family. They try to live as regularly, and then in parentheses, bourgeoisly, I butchered that, as possible. But still, everything goes unusually for them. Then there are all these other characters' descriptions as well. For example, about Moomin Papa, he's a clueless and boyish and very proud of his masculinity. He's very loyal to his family, but sometimes he gets tired of them. Moomin Papa is completely in love with his youth, and sometimes he talks about it getting their details wrong. And he prepares wine and loves secrets. Then Nuuskamuikkunen, I think his name is Snufkin. Mikä on Nuuskamuikkunen englanniksi?
Snufkin.
I was right. He is soft and carefree and independent. He doesn't care about owning things. Basically, he owns everything he likes. Snufkin is kind, but likes landscape way more than company. He has a lot of admirers, especially amongst the small and sensitive ones. And Moomin's is his best friend. And I don't know, this gave such a sweet look into how Tove viewed all of these characters. And of course, it was very special to read this as the first Moomin book. And it does make me wonder if Tove ever thought that this would be such a huge phenomenon. I absolutely loved this book. I adored it. Why I created this challenge is that I wanted to focus on reading non-Moomin fiction from Tove Jansson as well. And when I made this challenge, I thought these books would be full-length novels, but instead I found that much of them were in a short story collection, which I got here. So next up I read Reilua peliä by Tove Jansson, and it is translated by Kyllikki Härkäpää. And it is a short story about an artist couple called Jonna and Mari, and this book really goes into showing moments from their relationship rather than having one continuous storyline. I think in English it's called Fair Game, but I'll check that later. And it was actually quite different from what I expected. The language wasn't as descriptive as it is in Moomin stories. I completely understand that. And it felt quite mundane at times. It felt like I was reading about a couple's life. They traveled a lot together, they worked together, they asked opinions from each other regarding art. One of them even had a student at one point. And this book follows or has taken inspiration from Tove's own life a lot. If you didn't know, Tove was in a long-term loving relationship with a fellow artist, Tuulikki Pietilä, and Reilua peliä also tells the story of two artists as well. Last year I read Tove Jansson's book, and thanks to that reading experience I could recognize scenes or attributions of these characters that were taken from Tove's life. Obviously I don't know Tove personally, but there was, for example, a description that fit very well Tove's real life mother. This book was released in 1989, and while homosexuality wasn't a crime anymore in Finland, it still was very stigmatized. So Tove Jansson releasing a book about a same-sex couple was groundbreaking at the time, even though it was just her living her truth and taking inspiration from her own life. I don't want to get into labels too much, but oftentimes Tove Jansson, because she had her most long-term loving relationship with Tuulikki Pietilä, she is often called a lesbian. But on Tove Jansson's own website, which I think is like maintained by Sofia Jansson, her niece, it says of Tove's brother that Lars Jansson was bisexual like Tove Jansson. And Tove did have meaningful relationships with men as well, but from what I've kind of gathered is that from her relationships with women is where Tove Jansson like understood the fullness of love. So is Tove a lesbian, a bisexual? I don't think that even matters. What does matter is that she was a very groundbreaking queer artist, but in a way that she was just living her truth. In fact, Tove Jansson and Tuulikki Pietilä were the first same-sex couple that were invited to the President's Ball on Independence Day. So I did love Reilua peliä. I think it felt very much like cozy reading, and it gave insight into what it's like to be an artist and what it's like to dedicate your life to art and being with someone who does that as well. The book depicted a lot of their trips through the US. They also spent time at their summer cottage at an island, which obviously is directly taken from Tove Jansson's own life, since the family, and then later on Tove and her partner shared a cottage at an island right on the Finnish coast. Of course, I knew that this type of fiction that isn't about Moomins and isn't directed to children will be different, but it still surprised me how different it was. But I was very pleasantly surprised. Alright, so my view is that I'm really loving this Tove Jansson challenge, and I'm really happy I'm taking it on. I have 2 more books to read, and if you want to join me, please do. You have to just read 2 Moomin books and 2 fiction books that aren't about Moomins. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Bye!